Hi, I'm Aprajita. Welcome back to my channel. If you've not already watched part 1 of MBBS in Georgia, I will be linking it somewhere over here. Go and watch that first. So in part 1, I've covered majorly everything that you should be knowing before coming to Georgia. The admission process, accommodation, universities, transportation, etc. So in this video, I am going to be focusing mainly on what matters after you enter the country, your studies, your day-to-day life, your future after MBBS, all the doubts that parents and students have that usually aren't cleared out. I think as a medical student, your main game is with time. So I think everyone knows the biggest skill someone in medicine can have is burnout and prolonging it or not getting that affected by it. So managing your time really well. If you've got to hit the gym, you've got to take your diet, you've got to eat clean, you've got to stay fit, you also got to attend all the classes, maintain your attendance, come home and study as well. Apart from that, take care of yourself, what to do, personal, whatever, be it journaling, type of hobbies, sports, art, creativity, anything. It gets really difficult to manage it all. I think that's the whole game in medicine. So that is something that you should be mentally prepared for. Some students are early risers, so maybe hitting the gym at 6 a.m. and then starting their day from there. Some students sleep by 4 or 5 a.m. because they like to study late at night, so they're night owls. So honestly, you just got to experiment, find exactly what your personal body clock is and take it from there. I think a very important point to put forth here is that a lot of students, especially who, for example, get admission in India through the NEET, look down upon foreign medical graduates, FMGs, and there is a very common misconception that if you are doing medicine from Russia or from Georgia, it's much easier compared to if you do it from India, which I think everyone studying abroad would strongly condemn. For sure, it's only easy if you're not taking it seriously. I think everyone over here as well prepares for different postgrad exams, be it NEXT, FMG, USMLE, UK, the PLAB with the UK MLA, AMC, EMRI. A lot of students here study and prepare for a lot of different exams, and I think the pass rate is actually really good, especially from the last year or two that I've been focusing on understanding how many of my seniors are passing. Pass rate is excellent, in fact, for different universities. It all boils down to how much time you are willing to put on yourself to improve yourself academically, physically, emotionally, spiritually, however else. It's just about balance. I'm going to start with one of the most asked questions, food. So food over here is actually quite manageable. There are a lot of Indian stores everywhere. You can get all the basics, all the types of spices, dals, Maggi, the biscuits that you get specifically in India, Lay's. There are also quite a few Indian restaurants nearby where a lot of students eat at. Eating outside regularly can be a little bit expensive or heavy on the wallet, but it's manageable. But most students, I think, prefer cooking at home. On an average, if you want to get an estimate, for me personally, around 300 to 400 gel is spent on eating outside, but it obviously varies student to student. Obviously, cooking at home is not only cheaper, in fact, it can get a bit more expensive, especially if you're focusing on eating clean and healthy. But I think it's definitely the better option. I think most students get used to cooking after a while over here. University classes, coming to academics and attendance. Obviously, all the classes are conducted in English. Most of the professors here are pretty supportive, but one thing that parents and students should understand is that the system is quite different from India. You are expected to study a lot on your own. There is no spoon feeding as such. Attendance is generally compulsory. Again, it varies university to university. In some universities, attendance, a major part of the curriculum, it's given a lot of weightage, especially for marking and grading. In other universities, it's a little lighter, a little lenient, but generally 70 to 75% in most universities for different classes. For sure, you cannot expect to skip classes and pass easily. Exams and grading, most of the universities here follow the credit system. So each subject has a different specified amount of credits for it. I'll attach a screenshot over here for different semesters. So your final grade is based on your performance in different assessments in each subject, and then multiplied by how heavy the credit or the weightage for the subject is. For example, if you get like a 93 in a subject that has 2 credits, it's not going to affect your GPA of a rise as it should. For example, in comparison to getting an 85, so a B grade in a subject that is, for example, for 6 or 8 credits, so that would pull your GPA down way more. Exams are not extremely hard, so you do get a sort of structured guideline that you know what to study for, what not to, and which topics to focus on. But for sure, you cannot expect to pass without studying. Most of the subjects are concept based, so you have to have your basics cleared out since the beginning, since the first year. Got a lot of questions about clinical exposure, so I'll talk about my university specifically. For SCU, the first 3 years are more university heavy and clinically light, so it's a ratio of 20 to 80, 20% clinical, 80% university and textbook or book-based studying. And then the next 3 years, so year 4, 5, and 6, is more of a 30-70, where you have 30% subjects at the university and 70% in the hospitals. Hospital subjects can vary, so for sure you're going to the hospital to study, but it varies teacher to teacher. Some professors don't really show you patients, and it's just the clinical setting, but you're not really getting clinical exposure, if you get what I mean. I think one important thing to mention here is language. Of course, you're in the country of Georgia, you need to know Georgian language. So in our curriculum, we've got to take it thrice. We've got Georgian 1, Georgian 2, and Georgian 3. Most students usually finish it in first, second, and third semester. For us, Georgian 3 was introduced when we had already reached the 6th semester. So I'm in my 10th semester right now, and I am taking Georgian 3 currently. So you learn the basics, you learn numbers, basic conversational skills, which I think is pretty important, because as someone working in the healthcare industry, you should be able to communicate with your patients and understand exactly what they want to communicate to you. So knowing basic Georgian definitely helps, especially during rotations. A question that a lot of people have is degree validity. Is the degree from Georgia valid in India? Yes, it is. Comes with certain conditions. So after you complete your medicine degree, which is, so in India it's called the MBBS, but over here in Georgia it's called the MD degree. That's the equivalent of the MBBS in India, and not the postgrad MD degree that we have back home. After completing your MD degree from Georgia, you have to go back to India and clear your NEXT or the FMG examination to be able to practice or to get the Indian license. You do not need to clear the Georgian licensing exam if your goal is to come back to India or to not continue in Georgia. The Georgian licensing exam is only required to be cleared if you want to continue practicing in Georgia, if you want to pursue postgrad over here. I think a lot of students have this misconception that you've got to clear the Georgian licensing exam as well as the Indian licensing exam. No. So I'll just let you guys know, the pathway for Indian students is clear NEET, come over here, complete your 6-year course, MBBS degree. After that, go back to India, write your NEXT exam. Then you'll be placed. You'll complete a 1 to 2 year internship according to what the government rules are at that moment. After your internship is successfully completed, you will be given your Indian license, valid for practicing in India. And of course, many students, for example, decide to pursue postgrad in the States or the UK or Australia or in the Gulf. So most students have their preparation going on simultaneously. So along with studying for the final year of MBBS over here, also get done with FMG or NEXT prep, as well as studying for example, step 1 or step 2 or the MC or the MD. I've got a ton of questions also about part-time jobs. I think if I had to put a number to it, almost 50% of the students here are working part-time jobs. The most common job being working at Evolution or Proxy. So Evolution and Proxy is just basically online gaming and live casino platforms that students over here work at. I think the pay is pretty decent. For example, if you work 3 to 4 times a week and you maintain that throughout the month, you get an average of 1,000 to 1,500 gel, varying on work hours. I also know a bunch of students here who work at cafes, pizzerias, or even as a delivery person. For example, for Bolt, Volt, Yandex, you can work as drivers, you can work as a delivery partner for these food companies. It's not something I would personally recommend, especially to rely entirely on for managing your monthly expenses, but it's a good way for some students who want to also earn Something people don't usually talk about is hidden costs. So, apart from rent and food, you've got your health insurance every 3, 6, 9, or 12 months, varying on which plan you've taken. Your TRC or your visa renewal, as well as apartment deposits. Every time you move into an apartment, you got to sign your first as well as your last one. Give them the deposit. Some apartment owners also ask for a security deposit on top of the first and last month. And especially even when you're leaving the apartment, owners look at everything, and they could ask you for another $100 or $200 extra, varying on what damages have been done or if anything has deteriorated over time. It's really important to always keep a buffer budget. Safety, nightlife, racism. Talking about safety, I think Georgia's a pretty safe country, especially for girls. For sure, there are no major issues. Most students stay out late at night. You can use public transport till midnight. After that, even cabs and taxis, it's pretty safe. Even I personally am in my 5th year now, and think me and my friends have used cabs and taxis a lot, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., and 99% of the times we've not really had any issues or any instances where something out of the ordinary has happened. So generally it's secure. Nightlife is quite active. You've got a lot of rave clubs, you've got a lot of other clubs where students can go to. There's cafes, clubs, a lot of other social places, for example Fabrica, Kidi Club. For racism, I have personally experienced it twice. There have been two prominent instances where I faced racism. Generally locals are helpful, but I think it's not uncommon for a student to face some sort of racism over here. Just like any other country, even in your own, you just got to be respectful and aware of your surroundings. Life outside studies, Georgia is actually a really beautiful country. There are a lot of tiny different places to visit outside the city. It's got a really good balance of city life as well as nature. A lot of students travel, explore, try out different experiences, go to different cities or different towns nearby on the weekend or in the vacations. So for that, you can either rent cars or else take the Marshakta or another bus or just a private taxi. There are a lot of different ways. Another question that I've noticed I've gotten a lot is intakes. So I've got a lot of parents especially asking me, what is the difference between the two intakes throughout the year? The September versus the February intake. I think the September intake is more popular solely because it falls exactly in line with the Indian calendar and the Indian schooling system. So I think you will find a more bigger and a smoother shift into the September batch. February intake is also fine. I think comparatively the number of students are slightly lesser, but from what I've heard, they are trying to maintain an equilibrium and keep it balanced in both the intakes. There's no major differences as such. Academics go on exactly the same, timetables exactly the same. Only differences, for example, I am from the September intake, September 2021, and I will be graduating next year, July, August 2027, and so on and so forth. So that's the only difference really. It all boils down to your own comfort and personal preference and timing. I did get I think a few people asking me about what it's like after landing over here for the first time for university registration. So yes, once you land in Tbilisi, you're going to go to the university, complete your registration, submit any extra documents that were not already submitted, getting your entire procedure done, getting your student ID, online portal activation, just completing all the formalities. If you come through an agency, they usually do help you through all of this. It's pretty smooth. Extracurriculars and student life. A lot of universities here have different student clubs. In comparison to India, it's not that much, but it's better than nothing. For example, there are basketball clubs, football clubs, dance societies, a lot of cultural events, for example, during Diwali. So students do have different opportunities to just participate and socialize in extracurriculars. A ton of people have asked me about scholarships. I think this is another misconception. In medicine, there are no scholarships as far as I'm aware, especially over here in Tbilisi. I think in the beginning, when you take admission through an agency, they personally give you a sort of discount or a certain amount off that's from their end based on, for example, your 12th score or your NEET. You might have heard this from your agency as well. We all had heard it as well. So they give you a certain discount based on your 12th score, but it's not applicable to your fees over here and, for example, the country, Georgia itself. None of the universities give any sort of scholarships, especially throughout the 6 years. Your semester fee is the same it's maintained and it's not reduced according to how high your GPA is over here. Funds, most students are self-funded. Again, it relates to the entire scholarship topic, but I do know a lot of students over here who pay their fee by taking different bank loans. If you guys want, you can also, your parents can go and talk at whichever bank you guys have a bank account in, sort out how you can manage your every semester fee with the bank loan, and that can be adjusted. I think I want to mention some mistakes that I've seen students make that I would not like whoever is viewing this to make as well. Do not choose a university without proper research first. Read into all different universities, see how exactly you want your student life over here to be, because some universities are academic heavy and extracurricular light. Some universities are heavier on the extracurricular aspect and not that heavy on, for example, academics, like our university. So I think that's really important for each student and parent to read upon before choosing. Do not rely completely on agencies as well. I think if you talk to any senior, anyone who's studying over here, everyone's had different sort of experiences with different agencies. I don't want to name any agencies right now, but there are a lot of things that we're told in the beginning that turn out to not be true as we come here and as we go on with our lives. So I think it's really important to have different sources of information and not just rely entirely on what the agency tells you. Another mistake that many students make is not focusing on studies since the beginning. Most of the students here are like that. I think they take the first 2 or 3 years just to settle in, to kind of waste their life and really not focus on academics. I think especially if you're serious and if you want a future in medicine and postgrad, for example, in surgery, in a good hospital in a good country, it's really important to focus since your first semester. Another mistake is ignoring licensing exams early on and realizing it much later. A lot of people, even in my semester, in my intake, have made the same mistake, and I would not like any of you to do the same. So kind of have a map out or a plan of what you want in the future. And for example, if it is studying for the USMLE, then start it in the beginning. By the third year, try to aim to give your step one, see how it goes, and take it on from there. To finally addressing the question, should you choose Georgia to come to study medicine? I think there is a very personalized answer for this. It varies according to the individual the student is. If you're self-driven, if you're disciplined, and if you're ready to take on all the responsibilities of not just studying but 100 other things over here, I know how real the burnout is, how exhausting it gets mentally and physically every single day to do everything on your own. Yes, you have friends. Yes, it helps sometimes, but honestly, being away from home, not getting maa ke haath ka khana, coming home late at night after, for example, 3 or 4 classes, you've been out all day, to come home and then to have to stand and make your own food, manage all your utilities, your bills, your rent. If you're doing a job, to manage that, to manage your studies, your academics, your relationships, your friendships, your family back at home, it is a lot. Which, for example, if you're studying in India near your family, half these problems are cut down. So I think if you're ready to take on all of these responsibilities, you're mentally and physically prepared, it's a really good option for sure. But do not choose it if you are expecting it to be easy over here and if you're expecting things to be spoon-fed to you, because it's not going to be that simple. I think I also want to quickly address some other questions that I've gotten. Ragging culture is close to zero over here. It does happen informally, not at universities, but informally here and there, but it's really not, there's no ragging culture as such. Parents can visit really easily. You just have to apply for your visa, and I think you get it pretty quickly, and you get like a 30-day visa. So it's not that much of a hassle for parents to visit. IELTS is usually not required. The course duration is 12 semesters, so 6 years entirely to get your degree, which includes your 1 year of internship. That was part 2 of MBBS in Georgia. If there are more questions that you guys would still like answered by my end that I've not yet covered in both of these parts, I'd love to hear them. My Instagram DMs are open. You can always comment under this video as well with any other questions that you have, and I'd love to reach out and help whoever needs it. My Instagram will be linked below. Thank you for watching. Bye.